Good morning, students. Today I will explain you A Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot from Literature Reader. James Herriot lifespan was from 1916 to 1995. James Herriot is the pen name of James Alfred White, a British veterinary surgeon and writer. Veterinary surgeon who deals with animals, the doctor of animals. He is best known for his semi-autobiographical stories, often referred to collectively as All Creatures Great and Small. He mainly wrote animal stories and was known to refer to them as his little cat and dog stories, in which he describes with great simplicity his love for animals. Students, read the title of the story, A Triumph of Surgery. What do you mean by triumph? Means success or victory. Winning over something, that is known as triumph. Surgery stands for, usually it means operation, but in this story it stands for treatment. So let's see, by reading the story we will come to know who achieved success in whose treatment. Tricki, a small dog, is pampered by his mistress. She overfeeds him and he falls seriously ill. What happens to him? Does he recover? Students, we know that the narrator Mr. Herriot is a veterinary doctor, means he treats animal. So it is a story related to one of his treatment to an animal, Tricki, a small dog, who fell sick due to extra love and overfed to him by his mistress. Let's read the story and try to find out the answer of questions. What happens to him? Does he recover? I was really worried about Tricki this time. I had pulled up my car when I saw him in the street with his mistress and I was shocked at his appearance. Here, one day the narrator was driving his car when he saw Tricki, the pet dog, walking with his mistress, and he was shocked by looking at Tricki. He had become hugely fat, like a bloated sausage, with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy means filled with water, stared straight ahead and his tongue lolled from his jaws. So why narrator was shocked? As Tricki became hugely fat. The narrator says the dog was so fat that he looked like a huge piece of meat. Tricki's eyes were red and watery, completely filled with water, and his tongue was just rolling out of his mouth, just hanging. Okay, next. Mrs. Pumphrey hastened to explain. Hasten means she quickly told. He was so listless. Listless means lack of energy. Mr. Herriot, he seemed to have no energy. I thought he must be suffering from malnutrition. Malnutrition means lack of supply of food. Lack of food, you can say. So I have been giving him so little extras between meals to build him up. Some malt and cod liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Nothing much, really. Now, who was Mrs. Pumphrey? Yes, she was the mistress of Tricki. When she saw Mr. Herriot, she quickly told him that the dog was showing no interest at all in anything. She says that she thought the dog is suffering from malnutrition, means not getting enough food. So she gave him extra food between the normal diet, like some malt, cod liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks. And did you cut down on the sweet things as I told you? Mr. Herriot, as a doctor, asked her if she cut out, means she shot out, means stop giving sweet things or not, as he instructed to her earlier. Oh, I did for a bit, but he seemed to be so weak I had to relent. Relent means agreed. He does love cream cakes and chocolate, so I can't bear to refuse him. On which Mrs. Pumphrey replied, no, I tried to stop for some time, but I found him weak and so I have to give him. So she also says that her dog he just loved cream cakes and chocolates, and so she can't or could never refuse him. I looked down again at the dog. That was the trouble. Narrator looked at the dog and now he understood what is the problem with Tricki. It was that he was eating too much, and that too sweet things. Tricky's only fault was greed. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or night, and I wondered about all the things Mrs. Pumphrey had not mentioned. So, the problem was that he would eat any food at any time of the day and never say no. Narrator, as a doctor, was just thinking about the things given to Tricki by Mrs. Pumphrey. Apart from cakes, chocolates, Horlicks, malt, etc., are you giving him plenty of exercise? So he asked. Mr. Herriot asked Mrs. Pumphrey, are you giving him plenty of exercise also? Let's see what she replied. Well, he has his little walks with me, as you can see, but Hodgin, the gardener, has been down with lumbago. Lumbago means a kind of pain in the muscles at lower back. So there has been no ring throwing lately. She explains that he has only small walks with her, and as the gardener is ill, so ring throwing and other games is not going on nowadays. I tried to sound severe. Now I really mean this. If you don't cut his foot right now and give him more exercise, he is going to be really ill. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet. On hearing Mrs. Pumphrey, doctor told her seriously, means actually he warned her that you have to be very strict and give very little food to him, otherwise he will be really ill. Mrs. Pumphrey wrung her hands. Oh, I will. Mr. Herriot wrung means she get tense, no? I am sure you are right, but it is so difficult, so very difficult. She set off head down along the road as if determined to put the new regime means new routine, into practice immediately. Mrs. Pumphrey was getting nervous, as she can't imagine to be strict with the dog, as she loved him a lot. But when she agreed, then she agreed to do, although it was difficult for her. She left sadly with a strong decision to set a new routine for dog. And what was that? Yes, to give less food to Tricki and more exercise. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricki was tottering along, moving with very small steps, in his little tweed coat, drooping in his harness. Means he was covered with a blanket kind of dress, and drooping in his harness means it's very difficult to control his body weight and walk. I thought it would not be long before I heard from Mrs. Pumphrey. So looking at the dog's condition, that he won't be able to walk properly due to his overweight, doctor was sure to get a call from Mrs. Pumphrey very soon. The expected call came within few days. Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught, means extremely worried. Tricki would eat nothing, refused even his favorite dishes. Besides, he had bouts of vomiting. Bouts means sessions, many times. Okay. He spent all his time lying on a rug, panting. Panting means breathing with very difficulty. Did not want to go for walks, didn't want to do anything. As he expected the call from Mrs. Pumphrey, it came, and she was sounding really worried. She informed him about Tricky's condition, that he is refusing to eat and his favorite dishes also, and vomiting many times, and simply lying at one place on his bed and not interested in doing anything. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Tricki out of the house for a period. I suggested that he be hospitalized for about a fortnight. Fortnight means for 15 days, to be kept under observation. So narrator was already aware about this situation to come. So he was ready with his plans, and he asked Mrs. Pumphrey to send Tricki to his hospital for 2 weeks. The poor lady almost fainted. She was sure he would pine and die if he did not see her every day. When the lady heard that she has to send the Tricki, the dog, to hospital, she got sad, as she can't imagine to get part from him. She also says that Tricki also won't able to live without her. But I took a firm line. Tricki was very ill, and this was the only way to save him. In fact, I thought it best to take him without delay, and followed by Mrs. Pumphrey's wailings. Wailings means crying. I marched out to the car, carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. Doctor told her that it is the only way to save Tricki, and he decided to take him immediately by wrapping him in a blanket and left. Mrs. Pumphrey was crying when he was taking the Tricki to the hospital. Out on the road, I glanced down at the pathetic little animal gasping on the seat by my side. Glanced means looked. Pathetic little animal means the sad little animal. Gasping means breathing with very difficulty. I patted the head. Patted means touch with a softness, with gentle touch, you can say, with love. And Tricki made a brave effort to wag his tail, move his tail. Poor old lad. The young child. Lad stands for the young child or boy. I said, I think I know a cure for you. After leaving Mrs. Pumphrey's house in a car, Mr. Herriot looked the sad Tricki sitting beside him and touched him gently and said that he will cure him and he will be all right. With this, I stop here, students. We will continue the story in next video.